Welcome to NBNR, the authority on unfiltered opinions and authentic player insight for Nebraska athletics. Connect with us on Twitter, Instagram, and at nbnrpodcast.com.
We have the saying, no block, no rock.
You know, we just really love Utter. He's a junkyard dog.
Kenny Bell ran up to me. He's like, you know what you just did?
Get mad when you go get in the portal and go to another podcast?
You know, usually dumbbells are in pairs. They had 5 dumbbells.
Dang on it, Muhammad!
GBR.
Indeed. No block, no rock. Season 4, episode 31, coming at you from the Nebraska Brewing Company Barrel Room in La Vista, Nebraska, 68128. Fellas, seeing as Nebraska Brewing Company is our primary sponsor, let's go ahead and talk about the drinks we are drinking. Connor could not be here to give us his Pilsner, just that painful Pilsner monologue that he gives every freaking week.
Same beer every single day. He works here and he drinks the same beer every single day. But he's in Ireland drinking Irish beer, so
Yeah, can't blame him.
can't blame him.
For free.
For free.
He's there for free. But he wanted us to drink Pilsner in his name. Are we doing that?
No. Not a chance.
Well, hey, here's my pickle spiel. Pickle fight. It's canned. It's in stores. Come to the tap room. Get some, just not on Mondays. Mike, what you got?
I am drinking Good Game because I thought about, hey, I'm going to drink Pilsner for Connor. And I was like, no. I want Good Game because that's an easy drinking, the go-to beer if I'm not drinking the best beer on tap, which is the Hefeweizen, which I think our next two are drinking.
Yeah.
KB, what do you got?
Yep, I've got the Hefeweizen. It's it's like the automatic go-to for me at this point. I don't know. It's just smooth and it's good.
Well, we have with us a very special guest. And yeah, we're calling you a very special guest.
wow.
Evan Bland.
Okay.
He writes for the Omaha World Herald. And not just writes, he does like video stuff, podcasting, the Pick Six podcast. Evan Bland covering Nebraska baseball and football. Thank you for coming on.
You got it, guys. For the record, I also have an Hefeweizen, and it's tasty. Goes down smooth, not too filling, great taste.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All the good stuff.
We didn't build it up too much. Like it's solid. It's probably Mike said it's the best beer on tap.
Perfect for the end of the workday. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you just had a long day of probably writing all these stories that well, I mean, they're already pre-written, right?
No. If I told you that, I'd have to kill you.
Yeah. I'm sure you had a nice busy day and nothing better than coming to a brewery and then they're like, any beer you want.
What do you want?
What do you want?
What do you like? What's your taste? And we got it for you.
You got a wide range. You said you got the pickle here?
Pickle.
Yes, that's bold.
I'm telling you.
Bold choice.
It is
Here,
bold.
You want to taste? Here.
Well,
listen.
No.
Hey,
I mean,
during the
later,
break.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not.
You're
that
intrigued.
bold. It's
Look at it.
interesting. It's creative.
Yeah.
and it looks the part.
So we've got every
And it tastes the
flavor.
part.
We've got every flavor from pickles to bananas. I don't know what the Good Game tastes like. It just tastes like beer.
It tastes
But-
like winning. That's what it tastes like.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, hey, Mike. So, Nebraska Brewing Company has an event coming up.
Yes.
This weekend. Could you tell our listeners and watchers some more about that?
Yeah, so it's Guitars for Vets. They present Country Music Night. It's going to be this Friday, and they're going to have Nick Rucker and Lucas Miner. They're going to be doing a live show here at the brewery. They'll have a silent auction and live music. It's completely free. So I'd say come in here, grab an ice cold beer, and listen to some country music.
Yeah, it's for a good cause, and you don't even have to go to a website and say, "Hey, we're coming." No, just show up.
Just show up.
Grab a beer. It's for a good cause, and take care of business.
Absolutely.
So
And
country
where's
music.
that, right?
What's that?
And where's Nebraska Brewing Company at?
108th and Harrison, La Vista, Nebraska.
Boom.
And it's a silent auction. You can get a signed guitar from country music singer. And I'm not a huge country music guy, so please forgive me. Winona Judd. Woo! Which you Google her face pops up, so
Yeah.
she's a person.
Yeah, just like it with Evan Bland. I was like, how do I get a hold of Evan Bland?
Yeah.
He popped up.
And
There it was.
And I think we should also mention we do have another new sponsor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which again, I'm having Mike do all the dirty work here.
Yes, of course he is.
Go.
We are proud to say that we have partnered with Bunny.
Wow.
Benson Honey Farms. They are locally owned right out of Hartington, Nebraska. It is the best honey in the state, and they ship nationwide. We're super excited for this opportunity to do different things with them. It's not only just honey, it's barbecue sauce, it's
Candy.
honey candies, honey sticks, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
We're really excited to announce that sponsorship, and there's going to be a lot more to come with that. But for now, I just wanted to just get that going. So
Plug it a little bit.
Yep.
Cool.
Support local.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, let's get into some Husker baseball talk. The last time I looked, they were top 5 in RPI, coming off a sweep of the College of Charleston Cougars. Every win was a comeback win.
Right.
The first 2 in the 9th inning, where it was like you kind of lost a little bit of hope there. It's like, oh boy.
Mm-hmm.
But dude, they come storming back. And I told these guys a couple weeks ago, I am getting, I know it's really early to say this, 2021 vibes where you're watching these games and it never feels like they're out of it. In 2021, you had guys like Joe Acker would get on base constantly. And then Hallmark would do something. He would lay down a bunt. You got guys running around. You got Schwellenbach hitting gappers, Roscom, whatever. It just feels like, and I'll just throw it to you as like a broad thing. 7-3 in the first 10 games. Like, what are your main takeaways from this baseball team so far?
Well, first, like we said, I mean, they haven't been outclassed in any game. The games that they lost, 9th inning to Tech, 9th inning to Oklahoma, they were an out away. The one game against Grand Canyon when, nothing really came together. They kind of played poorly in all 3 phases and still only lost by 2.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think there's some maybe 2021 vibes there a little bit, certainly with the style of offense. They just swept College of Charleston. You know how many home runs they hit? They have one home run all weekend. Like, that's for a team that hit 97 last year, school record.
Mm-hmm.
That's not their game this year. It's laying down bunts. It's sacrificing. It's stolen bases. It's, being all the cliches, scrappy, gritty,
doing the little thing.
Gritty over pretty.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
I think they're bringing that thing back, gritty over pretty. And so, like, here's a little nugget. So they're 7-3 coming home for their home opener. That's I think it's their 4th best winning percentage before their home opener that they've had, which tells you that they started strong. Those other 3, they hosted regionals every single time.
We love that.
That's a fact. Just throwing that out there. So typically when you're a northern school and you're in Nebraska and you play your first month on the road, sometimes you don't even get outside to see a white ball against a blue sky until the games count. So your defense is a little behind. Your hitting's a little behind against some of these warmer weather schools. So you go 7-3, you win, you sweep on the road after you win 3 of 4 on the road. That does a ton for your RPI purposes. Yeah. And typically the last handful of years, Nebraska at this point is probably sitting 70 to 90 in the RPI range.
That's wild.
And it's hard when you get into Big Ten play to make that up. You're not in the SEC or the ACC where every weekend you can make a statement. It's hard to do that. So it's especially important for Nebraska to have done what it did moving forward, because it's going to regress a little bit just because of the caliber of the competition. But the other thing I would say too is, like, you look at, like, okay, what have they done well? What's sustainable? What are they not living up to? Like, the offense has been okay from a clutch perspective. Like, that's going to actually probably get better, numbers would say. The pitching has been deeper than it's been in a while. And the sticks tend to heat up as the weather does. So, like, that's going to get better too. So, like, as good as it's been, you can make a case that it's, only going to improve from here.
Do you think, some people were looking at that RPI and they're like, rank them, you cowards. Are you at that point? Yeah. I mean, 25th, maybe just 25th, nothing too crazy, but, like, do you think it would be out of the realm of possibility for this team to be ranked if they come off a solid South Alabama showing? Like, what are your thoughts there?
I don't know about quite ranked. I know they're receiving votes this week in some national polls. So you're probably looking at, 30 to 35 right now. I don't know that a sweep over South Alabama changes that necessarily, right. But, like, it doesn't really matter. Like, the RPI, it's about how you're doing, but it's also about the record of your opponent and then the record of your opponent's opponent. So, like, what Nebraska's done for scheduling is really smart. Like, they played College of Charleston, they were 7-0 coming into that. They played Grand Canyon before that, they were 4-0. So, like, it doesn't mean that those are going to be the best teams, but if you're playing teams with good records and you're beating those teams, and then, oh, by the way, you're beating them on the road, that weights really heavily into the RPI. And so, like, when you get into May and Selection Sunday comes around, your top 16 national seeds that host typically are in the top 20 in RPI. So it's really tightly correlated, closer to RPI than it is rankings necessarily. So I don't know. If I'm Nebraska, I'm kind of cool staying under the radar for a few more weeks.
Oh yeah, fair.
Yeah.
You know, figure yourself out. This is usually when you're at home, you start to build some momentum and go from there. So I think they're the seeds for a pretty cool season. They still have to go out and do it. I think defensively, they still haven't been as good as maybe they want to be, but you can just kind of see where it's going, and you just can't undersell how important this start is for them when you talk about having an at-large bid in a couple months.
Yeah, Kyle, we had talked about playing these mid-major teams during the week.
Yeah.
Such as last year, UNO.
Yep.
And Creighton lost a bunch to Creighton last year.
Yep.
Thankfully, they're only playing UNO once this year.
Right.
So that's only one loss. No, I'm just kidding. No, but like, I know it's a whole different team. And certainly after the first 10 games, you feel better about those games. And you see the staff, they look a little bit deeper. The bullpen looks deeper. I see Riley Silva with the 533 on base. And I'm like, I like that. Yeah. And he runs the bases very well. I like that. Tyler Stone, I feel like he's going to hit a lot of dingers this year. And I'm glad to see Kyle Perry pitching well. You know, he had that game against Oklahoma where he gave up a few runs there at the end to give up that lead. Like, got Oklahoma back in the game, but he's been closing out games. Love to see it so far.
How much of it would you say is the Rob Childress effect with this team? Just like knowing the situation, and I mean, we were on the wrong side of it earlier, the first couple games, but it seems like we're on the right side of it now. And how much is it of just having a guy like Rob Childress in there that can just get the guys where they need to be? Maybe it's a little bit of a mechanic thing or whatever it is, but
no nonsense.
Yeah, exactly. Just steady Eddie.
Yeah, I mean, he's old school. Like he'll tell you his method is the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
About mechanics and repeatability with your delivery and that sort of thing. And his hallmark at A&M and at Nebraska when he was here the first time was strikeouts to walks, right? You want to limit the walks. You want to strike guys out. If you can do that at a 3-to-1 ratio, that's sort of the goal that they're shooting for. Nebraska's never done that. The closest it's come was in the early 2000s with some of those great teams that went to the College World Series.
Having Komine is nice, and
Komine
Jabba
plays toward that.
Dorn.
Johnny Dorn, all those guys. So like they're off to a good start there. I think that's the first thing I look at is what's the collective strikeout to walks, and it's still I think above 3-to-1 as of right now. So you're not talking about just one or two guys. You're talking about the whole staff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think his effect so far. First of all, there are like 4 guys at least on the team that wouldn't be here if it weren't for Childress. Ty Horn was somebody that committed for him. Grant Clevenger out of the portal. I think Kyle Freilich out of the portal. A couple of other transfers who come in. They came here because of Rob Childress and his reputation as a pitching coach. And so I think that's part of it. And then you look at guys who maybe have had the stuff, but it hasn't translated. I think Drew Christo's the obvious exhibit A, right? Like he was a top 100 prospect out of high school. Intangibles for days, had the stuff, but he didn't always know where it was going.
Yeah.
And this year, you're starting to see that show up a little bit. He's had a couple long starts in a row, both career highs, I think, for that point. And so, like, yeah, that's where it starts. And we'll see kind of how it builds from here. I think the next step for the staff is kind of figuring out what are your roles. Like you essentially turned over the entire bullpen. You have 2 new weekend starters. So like, where does everybody fit in? And I don't think you still know that. After 3 weeks, you're going to have to kind of figure that out as you go along. I think Nebraska would have liked to have that 4th game against College of Charleston just to see what that looks like. But now you're going to have midweeks here in about a week with Wichita State and then a bunch after that. So you'll see kind of who that 4th starter is, 5th starter. And I think that's maybe where that depth of pitching really starts to shine.
Yeah. Midweeks, cross your fingers.
Yeah. And just to kind of put a bow on Nebraseball, Mike, I gotta say, like, I'm very encouraged because it would have been easy, especially after the 21 season, where they just wouldn't have won these games that they have been, right? Where they fall behind, and it just felt like they couldn't get over that hump. And I don't know if it's a mental thing or whatever, but I just feel like this team's never going to be out of it. Still early, but I'm just hopeful with the whole mental aspect of things. It just seems like there's been a bit of a corner turned, and I think there's talk about the past couple of years where Bolt just didn't really like his teams You know, and I hear that and I'm like, damn, I mean, that's kind of on him because he brought those guys in. I mean, geez, you don't like your own guys that you recruited and brought in. But it feels like they take these pictures after the games or they're all in a huddle and looks like he likes these guys.
Yeah,
for whatever that's worth.
And you got to I think they've figured that out the last 2 or 3 years because they've had to overhaul their roster every year. And it's not because Nebraska's doing something wrong. It's because guys are transferring and there's like COVID years to worry about. And it was just a weird time. And so I think they've kind of figured out like, okay, these are the guys that we want. Like, for example, they're shying away from the transfer portal a little bit and they're leaning harder into junior college guys because they're like, these are the kind of guys that we want, these baseball lifers who are here because they love the game. And if you can survive at the JUCO level, like you're going to love it here, that sort of thing. But yeah, like, I don't know about you guys. Like I'm watching Sunday, they're trailing to College of Charleston and it just kind of felt like, they're probably going to win this. Like they're down 2-0 early. And I'm just kind of like, I think they're going to be okay. They're going to wear down the starter. The offense is going to kind of chip away at it. They're going to get a run here and there, and they're probably going to win. And that's not the vibe from the last couple of teams. It was like, oh boy, can they hang on? Yeah. What about the 7th? How's that going to go? But
I'm so happy you said that because I'm listening to the game on my phone, and it's 2-0, and you hear about Josh Karen hitting the ball on the screws, but it finds a glove, and it's like, no, I'm not worried at all, not at all. Kind of like in girls volleyball before the Texas game. Yeah. But it was like, they're going to find a way. Like this team's going on a run, but who cares?
Yeah. It's like the luxury of just not feeling panic.
It's like, anti-football.
Yeah. Right.
And it's like basketball the same night, right? Nebraska plays Rutgers Sunday night and that lead gets whittled down to whatever it was, 6 late.
Yeah. Yep.
And you're just like, they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like they're at home. They're going to figure it out. Like they're going to settle down. When have we ever thought that about Nebraska basketball?
Especially Nebraska basketball.
Like it was that thought struck out to me Sunday. Was like, oh dang. I mean, both times, you kind of were in the danger zone a little bit there, and you're just like, I think they're gonna be okay. Yeah. How different is that from sort of the Nebraska men's experience?
Right. Well, listen, I'm Jersey guy tonight. Okay.
Yeah.
Casey, last home game at PBA. Josiah Alec, dude, is a freaking he's a pest, right?
Yeah.
He's a pest.
Yes.
Mike, you like pests? Yeah. Annoying pests that just get after it.
Like Hoiberg.
Yes, like Sam Hoiberg.
Yes.
And, CJ Welcher, he's still got one more year of eligibility. And
that was interesting that he decided to walk. But Casey did last year. So, yeah, that's what I told myself. But, I guess CJ, if he wants to go elsewhere and maybe have a larger role, he could probably find something maybe more out east where he's from. But I don't know. I just found that odd. I feel like he's finally embraced the role of coming off the bench, and he really adds a spark to this team. We didn't beat Wisconsin if we don't have CJ Welcher.
Yeah, and he's getting the love that he's wanted since he's been here. Like he's getting the love now, right? Like the fans are starting to warm up to CJ Welcher. It's no longer a fear of like, hey, he's just going to take it to the corner and just toss up a 3. Oh. No, he has a role, and he's helping the team, right? So I think he's at a point right now where I could see him coming back because I would imagine the last couple of years have been kind of tough because there's a lot of people talking like that.
Yeah. Isn't it kind of an example too of just like a guy who kind of finds his wheelhouse, finds what he's good at? Like I think everybody comes to college and you want to be the man and you want to be kind of the guy.
Yeah.
But you kind of learn like, this is fun. I could be a 6th man on a team that goes to the NCAA tournament. Like I don't need to be the guy on a sub 500 team.
Yeah.
I think like everyone kind of gets to that point in college and beyond in like whatever field that you're in. But like we get to see that real time with some of these athletes figuring it out. It's kind of cool to see.
Yeah. He's in his pocket right now.
Well, that's how Jamarcus Lawrence is right now too. Like he was in the starting role as the point guard, and gosh, that guy's not a point guard. And I understand the whole Aaron Eulis thing that kind of threw a wrinkle in what was supposed to happen this year. But coming off the bench, he has been like the ultimate spark plug in the last 5 games. Dude's been lights out, just a spot up shooter. And if you could just get the turnovers in check, I think this team could be pretty special in the tournament if we make the tournament, I guess. Right. Evan, are we going to make the tournament?
Yes.
Dude.
I don't see how there's any doubt. Like just from a resume perspective, no poor losses, no quad 3 or 4 losses. The wins that they have, like what's the case for them not making it? Maybe just the 1 road or the 2 road wins. I guess that's kind of what it is, but
yeah,
I don't know. I think they're off the bubble in a positive way.
Yes.
I don't see a situation where they don't make it. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah. And I mean, you look just like watch a game. Just watch a game, especially the home games. Watch a game and just see how fun it is. Like they are watching Nebraska basketball this year has been just a blast. Like it just looks like they're all having a great time. They're all playing super hard. And I don't think you can quite say that for the last few years.
No, they have an identity. We talked about this last week with Jack Mitchell, and this team finally has an identity. Hoiberg's never had a team that had an identity, and this team is gritty, and they are really good at playing defense. That's perfect. That'll win you a lot of games. If you're the pest on the other side of the ball, you're going to win a lot of games, especially against those teams in the South and stuff like that aren't used to it. It's all scoring. You play a team that's going to go steal the ball from you a bunch and body you up. It's not bad.
No, but like seriously, these last 6 games, they're not just taking care of business. They are beating these teams handily. Okay. Like even when it got to 6, like you said, it just never felt like it was at risk. And listen, think Joe's, I'm just thinking about like, I think it was just last year when we were talking about Hoiberg.
Yeah.
And I'm on record, whatever. I'm just like, dude, it's just not gonna happen with Hoiberg. It's just not.
Yeah.
Like, you come here to win, right? And people are just like, no, come on. Who else are they going to get? And blah, blah. It's like, but ever since Trev Alberts kind of made it clear that Hoiberg's coming back, they're like 14 or 15 games above 500. They're taking care of these teams that they're supposed to, not just winning by 2. Like they're beating them by double digits.
Yeah.
And, they're kind of projected to be a 9-10 seed right now, which I think is just fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the first time since 2014, going dancing. And we always talk about bowl games.
Yeah.
Gosh. Everybody makes a damn bowl game except Nebraska. And you see these teams that make March Madness, the tournament. It's like, damn it, Gardner Webb's in it. And Belmont's having fun. And Bucknell's beating Kansas. It's like, why not us?
Yeah.
Well, and you got to give Fred Hoiberg a ton of credit. I think he should be Big Ten Coach of the Year.
Absolutely.
I mean, you could make the case for Northwestern as well with what they've done. But like, think about like 2 years ago, he was in the situation as a certain former Nebraska football coach. Both guys brought in as offensive minds, both guys who had success at other schools, neither of which was translating to their current league. One of those coaches is no longer coaching at Nebraska. The other one reinvented himself to the place where he was, to your point, playing defensively, being gritty. They still have that offensive system, but it's not based around that anymore. They found guys that can win at Nebraska in Lincoln, and look where they are. So like, talk about a divergent path.
Oh yeah.
Taken from 2 different people. One adapted, and the other one didn't.
Yeah. The other one stayed stubborn.
Wait, are you talking about former head coach Scott? Oh, that guy. Yeah.
That one. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I think it says something about the character of Fred Hoiberg to be able to take a step back and be like, okay, this obviously isn't working, and I want it to work here.
Mm-hmm.
Like he could have easily been like, all right, it ain't working, whatever, fire me. But instead, he's like, no, let's figure this out and let's make it work. And it's fun. It's a fun brand of basketball.
Yeah.
Like I've never enjoyed going to PBA like I do this year. Like I enjoy it. Every time I'm like, I don't care who's coming in. Rutgers, oh yeah, okay, they beat us. I don't care. We're gonna beat them.
Mm-hmm.
I literally, for Purdue came in, I was like, we'll play with them. And then we got to storm the court. That was pretty fun.
Right? Yeah.
And the other thing too is like, it's not one guy who's doing it. Like they didn't bring in one guy and like they're riding it, and like when he leaves, oh boy, what are you gonna do? Like Nebraska has 5 or 6 guys that on any given night can be the guy that can lead them to victory, right? And like that speaks to system, that speaks to roles. And like when you get into the NCAA tournament, like if you're whoever Nebraska plays, who are you going to key in on? Okay, right. you're gonna man up on Casey near the logo, but like beyond that, like how do you handle Rink Mass? Is he the guy that night? Is it Juwan Gary? Does Wilcher come off the bench and get hot? Like who knows?
They're a matchup.
That's really interesting.
They're a matchup nightmare. Consider it. They still have to play well, right? But on paper, they're a matchup nightmare. I mean, Rank could hit 5 threes in your face if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. You key in on Casey, you hold them a little bit. Hey, Juwan, go give me an offensive board, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
give me a putback.
Right, and Bryce can score.
That was
beautiful.
Nasty.
Who knows? Alec might hit a corner 3.
Right.
Sure. Sure. Why not? No, but like you said, and it's kind of contrary to, the Bryce McGowan's thing, where I'm not saying they shouldn't have brought him in.
Right.
Obviously, a very talented player, but like, that's all you had.
Yeah.
And if Bryce is off, then Jesus Christ, you're losing by 20. But no, like Casey, you look at his box scores. There's probably been like 5 games where he scored between 2 and 6 points or something. But you have all these other guys that step up and play defense, like you said, and offensive boards could still work on that. But like last night
they got dominating.
Yeah.
And that was a team, and that's the same Rutgers team. Remember, Juwan left.
They were missing their top guy that kicked our ass, though.
Well,
he was out.
Clifford Amore kicked Nebraska's ass last time they played. Just getting board after board and muscling up Mast.
Yeah.
But dude, I mean, you see Juwan Gary and you see Alec, and they got heart, man. They got heart.
Yeah. I mean, I think Alec like laying like straight out, like all the way out for that rebound. Like that was like the epitome of what we watched last night was that rebound. And it's just, it's awesome.
Well, he looked like a kid from Lincoln, Nebraska that was playing his last home game. Like he put every ounce of energy he had in that game and it showed. Like that he started the game off and until they got him out at the end. But gosh, like he brought it every minute of the game. And it was fun to watch because is there any more Lincoln native guys that are playing at lower level schools that are interested in coming to Nebraska? Because we have hit the jackpot with Sam Griesel and Josiah Alec.
Yeah. And like it's cliche, but like the idea that it's a team that fans can identify with, like, Josiah Alex sprawling out for a loose ball.
Just hurting himself.
I think Casey also like is relatable because like he's not a genetic freak, but he just shoots the 3 well. And when he's not doing that, he's doing reverse layups and cutting. And like anybody can, in theory, do that. He's just doing it at a really high level. And you contrast that with some of the early Hoiberg teams that were just kind of unlikable. You kind of felt like some guys were, and first of all, it was kind of a mishmash of parts. And you kind of felt like some guys were there for themselves. Whether that's true or not, you can debate, but it just kind of felt that way. This group, like how many future NBA players are on this team? I don't know.
Maybe one or two.
Not many.
Yeah. Casey, maybe.
Like, they're loving the moment and there's joy in what they do. I think people can sense that. Like whatever you're doing, like do it with joy, do it with passion.
Right.
And that's not always a given in college athletics, but like this team, like they have the joy. They love doing it. They're good at doing it. It's fun to watch. I think that's part of the reason people are all in.
Yes. They're having a blast. They are having so much fun.
So speaking of joy and passion, and I know we're promoting someone else by saying this, but Robin Washit, he has a tweet about Casey. I don't know if you saw it, about how like I've never seen anyone in my life that can turn a game around just quite like Casey Tominaga can. And of course, he had someone like
did you get
replying
that
to him.
Troll that he's like found 20 guys that
like
were
50. No,
50?
he said I could literally name 50 players better,
and then he did.
And it's like that's cool. And yeah, those 50 guys that you named, are they technically better basketball players than Casey Tominaga? Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Yes,
we don't need like we're homers. We're homers.
Did you see that list though? You obviously know what team he roots for. Did you see his list?
I'm assuming Herky.
No, Creighton.
Oh, okay.
His first 5 guys on the list were like every single player that played for Creighton.
Sherman, Calhoun.
Yeah. So
speaking of soft, oh God, come on, Jesus. But no, like all those guys that you listed, those 50, are they better? Sure, fine. But as long as Casey's making shots, there's nobody I want to watch more than Casey Tominaga. And his freaking Home Alone antics. The Edward Munch scream.
Dude, he high-fived a fan.
Yeah.
He literally went almost in the stands last night.
You know, he
didn't get teed up or anything. That's cool.
He's got his dad, and he's 6'10", for God's sake.
Yeah.
Speaking of, we talk about how Casey's not a genetic freak or whatever. His dad's 6'10".
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
He didn't get an ounce of it.
No.
Well, he got have you seen how short his mom is?
Right.
He got the mom height. It's okay though.
No, but like, is there anyone in college basketball, I know, being biased, that you'd rather watch more than Casey?
That's as fiery.
I mean, our writer at the World Herald, Wilson Moore, he calls him a microwave. I think that's a really good
way
analogy because like he can heat up in a second, right? Like there are certain guys that okay, they've got it tonight or they don't. Casey is a guy who like he might look cold for half, and then the second half one goes in. It's like
yeah,
like one goes in, and you're like okay, he's on. He's
Yep.
feeling it, right? So like I think that's one thing about him that really stands out. And again, even if he isn't on for a night, if he scores 3 points, he's taking a defender away the entire game because that guy's not leaving him 5 feet beyond the arc. He's just not. He's going to stay with him. So like even when that's not working, he's got a defender. He's helping with spacing, and he's a really good cutter. Like not every 3-point shooter can do what he does with the reverse layups, and he just has a knack for spacing and cutting. And like I mean, as elite as he is as a 3-point shooter, he's not a one-trick pony. That way, and I think that's an underrated part of his game.
He's just he's crafty.
Name another team that has a 5'11" guy cutting to the hoop like we do at K-State. I'm just saying. I was talking to the guy that sits next to me, and he's like, I seriously can't think of another. And we were talking Nebraska teams. Another Nebraska team that has a guy like K-State that could just cut and shoot like that. It's insane.
Yeah, and he doesn't stop.
No,
like his motor is just like
in circles.
He's just maxing out the RPMs the whole game.
Yeah, and like name the last Nebraska ball player that like you wanted to watch, that you went out of your way. You know, people talk about Caitlin Clark. People go out of their way to watch her. Yeah, she's a generational talent, right? But Casey told me, name the last Nebraska player that you would do that for. I don't even think Bryce really, right? I mean, it's not like he was putting up huge numbers, or it's not like he was particularly flashy. He would shoot a lot of, elbow jump shots.
Yeah. Yeah. I
He's
mean,
not cutting to the basket.
I think honestly, I'm kind of like the perfect example for this, because even with the podcast since 2020, you really wouldn't catch me tuning in to a whole lot. I'm a big football fan. Other than that, like I'm a videographer. I'm kind of a nerd. Like I really don't like the other stuff. Just doesn't really. I don't pay much attention to it. And this year, I have found myself like making sure that Nebraska ball, like even women's Nebraska basketball, like it's on my TV. Like I'm watching it. My wife and I are watching it, even though she hates basketball. Like I just make sure that I stay in tune because it's just a lot of fun to watch. And so I think I'm the perfect example of that. Like I don't.
Yeah.
Prior to this year, I really, to be honest with you, like I'll just go read some tweets from Evan Bland and like right. I'll just catch up from whatever the professionals are saying about it. Because for me, it's just like I don't know. I have to find some sort of entertainment, and this year I found entertainment in Nebraska ball.
That's a great point. Like the casual fan barometer,
Mhm.
like of all the major Nebraska sports, like I don't cover Nebraska basketball. So like, I'm all in on football and all in on baseball. And so like whatever's kind of left is what I pay attention to with basketball. And typically you get to this point in the year and you're like, okay,
it's over.
Maybe
NIT.
the NIT, maybe. And like, you're just kind of playing out the string and okay, they're playing on opening day at the conference tournament and hey, maybe they can win a game.
Yeah.
But it's different this year. Like it's become appointment viewing, and it's become like you can just the March Madness thing like is a thing. Like
It means something.
There's a fever to what people have. Like there is. Like people are excited about it. They want to know where they end up, and that's different. Like I think once you cross that threshold from like where the casual fan tunes in every time and they know when the next game is, like that's when you know you have something special. And it's been a long time. So like even Nebraska's NCAA tournament team in 2014, like you didn't really get the sense that they were going to do it until No Sit Sunday when they beat Wisconsin. And they got in. Like this team for at least a month has been like, they're probably an NCAA tournament team. In the last week or so, like they're definitely an NCAA tournament team. So like it's a different vibe when you can relish and savor that journey, like knowing that you're going. Like that's something Nebraska hasn't done since the 90s.
Right.
It's a cool thing.
Yeah.
Well, and they told them, they're like, you're pretty much, they've been playing for their tournament lives for the past month and a half.
Yeah.
And
You're on the bubble. You're on the bubble.
Yeah, you're on the bubble. And they've answered the call.
Yeah.
How many men's sports teams have been so close to doing something we haven't done in a long time and didn't do that?
Yeah.
Like football. And we'll talk about that after the break.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a fever. And the only prescription is Nebraska ball's first NCAA tournament win of all time.
Yeah. Of all time. All right.
We're going to take a quick break. In the meantime, go to BensonHoneyFarms.com. Go purchase Nebraska's best honey.
how would you say your mental focus is?
Oh, it's focused. Look,
Cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money. Dollar bill, yo. We have the saying, no block, no rock.
Thanks, Joe. And thanks, Troy. While we were getting our beers, we were talking a little bit about covering Matt Rhule, going to these press conferences. And one of the things that we had asked you, Evan, was like, what can a person do, a journalist like yourself, to kind of like get in some hot water with your fellow journalists? And you had said something to the effect of, if you ask bad questions, and I'm just curious, like, I don't know if you want to name names or whatever, but like,
He would love that.
but like, does Sam, no, like, what is a bad question? Because you always hear, right? I'm a teacher. You always, there's no such thing as bad. There definitely is. But like, what's the definition for you of a bad question?
In that setting, it would be something that wastes the time that we're given. So like, we get a certain amount of time every week with Matt Rhule in the season, or certain players, and you might talk to a player, on a Tuesday and not talk to them again for weeks, depending. And so, if you ask a question maybe that's already been answered, if you ask a question that's not pertinent to the narrative or what's going on around them, that can turn some people, because again, we're there. You have a finite amount of time to hopefully ask some things that provide insight and interest. And if that's not happening, then it's okay to just sit and listen.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Have you ever just been like in the middle of asking a question and you got a side eye, or someone turned around and was just like anything like that, where you're like, oh, okay, that's me.
Like, that was a dumb question.
There it is.
Yeah.
Like, was there ever a time like that for you?
I'm sure. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like, I think it's a skill to be able to listen to an answer while you're also thinking of your question, because in a setting like that, especially with football and with Matt Rhule, it's sometimes hard to even get a question in edgewise. And so you kind of go in. I mean, my process is usually to have at least a question or two, and that's probably about all that I'll get, and that's okay. And if it happens, great. But sometimes this has happened, I think, once or twice since I've been doing it. I'll have something I want to ask, and I'll ask it, and then I'll listen back later on, and I'll be like, you know what? He kind of already answered that like 2 questions earlier, but I was too locked in on kind of where I wanted to go that I wasn't listening to what was being said. And so like sometimes that cringy moment after the fact for me comes up, and I'm like, oh gosh,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about this now. A lot of people were thinking about this earlier. That's a way that I can get better.
Yeah.
Sure. Listening to the answers before asking the question. What a novel concept.
Well, I don't think you're alone in that, because I'm sure there's, you got a lot of people in that room. And like you said, they probably have their own 2 prepared questions where they're doing the same thing as you are. Like, they kind of just want to get their question in. And like, I don't think you're alone in that.
And sometimes you have to adjust. Like, sometimes something is said and you're like, we need to follow up on that. Right?
Yeah.
Like, that was interesting. Let's see what's said. And the other, what I've kind of found too with players, because you kind of get to know the coaches and kind of how they operate, but like with players, especially, some you think in the moment are saying something interesting, and you listen back and you're like, it's kind of cliche. And then sometimes it's the other way around, where like maybe the way they delivered it wasn't all that engaging, but you listen back and you're like, that was really interesting.
Yeah.
That was insightful. I got something out of that. That was a thought that I hadn't considered. So like, I often think like the gap between like the live interview and like when you listen back to it, oftentimes like the reality from what you perceive and what it actually is can be pretty wide. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting because like the goal of this podcast was to like sit down with players and like get the unfiltered, get like the non-cliche answers that like, because we watch every press conference. I'm just like you guys do. We analyze every little answer and what they said and how they said it.
Yep.
But like the goal was to like start this and talk to players and get the real story and kind of like get these non-cliche answers. But it is funny. Do you ever catch yourself like listening to things and in these press conferences, and you're like, man, I feel like you could have gave a better answer. Like, I feel like, we've heard this 150 times already.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. I mean, there are days, especially with some of the seasons that Nebraska's had in the last 5 or 6 years, like you go into a press conference in November and you're just like, what are we asking?
Right.
Like the coach would have a Thursday availability, and we're like, we kind of addressed everything on Monday, kind of know what this is, kind of know what the team is. And like, some of us that would show up would be like, what are we going to ask today? Like, how, what's this going to be like? But yeah, like you can tell like who's engaged and who's not. Like the guys that show up because they have to show up and answer a few things. You're like, after a while, like you can tell too in the length of the interview, I think most of the time, because if you're watching an interview with a player, say, and it's like 2 or 3 minutes, the odds are pretty good that player isn't going to be all that forthcoming that day, and everyone's just like, okay, let's
boring.
Right?
Yeah,
and if it's 8 or 9 minutes, then you're onto something. You're on a roll. Like the length really can tell a lot.
Yeah.
So Evan, you've been covering this team for a while, and I think you've had the privilege of covering it for the last 3 head coaches. Yeah. Do you have any memorable, we'll say, press conference experiences with any of those particular coaches? Maybe we'll start with Bo. Do you have any memorable Bo press conference that you're like, oh my gosh, like I have to start writing now?
Yeah.
I only covered the team under Bo in 2008.
Okay.
So I was finishing up college, and the thing I remember, my interaction with Bo was related to a column that an opinion person at the Daily Nebraskan wrote on a slow night. They're like, I'm kind of bored. I'm going to criticize Bo Pelini and not being transparent about player discipline.
Ooh. Oh boy.
And I was the sports editor at the Daily Nebraskan at that time, and that went out. And the next day I was in our Daily Nebraska offices in the basement of the Student Union, and we get a phone call, and one of the news guys answers it, and you could hear Bo on the other end screaming, what is this? How, with some colorful language in there.
Yeah.
What
the fuck is this?
And we got banned from practice for a week.
Oh, no.
Whoa. Dictatorship. Hey, First Amendment.
With it. Yeah. So we worked through it and figured some things out. But because of this editorial, it's totally separate from our operation, we got banned and we got chewed out by Bo. So that's my Bo story.
I mean, that sounds pretty on brand for everything that we've heard to this point.
Par for the course. Okay, let's shift to the next era. Mike Riley. Do you have any memorable Mike Riley press conferences?
My first year with the World Herald covering Nebraska was 2017. That was his last year.
Yep.
And he's just such a nice guy. The thing that I'll always remember about Mike was that he did a press conference after he'd been fired.
Mm-hmm. That was
that's unusual. You don't see that very often. So like for him to be, and you talk about what can you do to alienate other media members. A student at that time asked Mike, and he asked it in a way that was not mean-spirited, but he or she said, what does it feel like to be unemployed?
Oh, I remember that.
And again, I don't think the intention was to be a jerk about it, but that's how it came off. And you could just tell, like, the room just chilled and everyone was just like, and he answered it very gracefully and said, I'm going to, look forward to doing this and that. But I've talked to Mike for a couple different stories on the phone in the last 3 years or so. And he still has just positive things to say about Nebraska. He's still thoughtful. So just, a guy who strikes me as someone who, like, the moment was never too big for him.
Mm-hmm.
I think obviously he made mistakes when it came to run the program, but like just somebody who I don't think ever lost track of who he was in the Nebraska fishbowl.
I'm sorry. I had said a few minutes ago that there's no such things as bad questions. That is a bad. That's one of the. What do you expect him to say? Like, even as like a journalist or whatever that person was, how does it feel to be unemployed?
Yikes!
It's fucking dandy.
Yeah.
Like what the?
I feel like a failure. What do you want him to say?
I know.
And he finished up and he shook hands with everybody and hugged a few people. It was different from, Bill Callahan driving off in his SUV and never to be heard from again.
Yeah.
Like there was some closure to it. And, for whatever that was worth, it was different.
Well, and I think it helped too that we had the next guy, right? We had the next guy. the perfect guy for the job,
The Messiah.
and of course that at the time, at the time, Mike Riley, he's like, yeah, I get it. I tried.
I mean, I'm
Hey,
sure
I got you guys a 9-1 season. Shut up.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody like Mike Riley can understand. Like,
Right.
yeah, okay, I see who you guys are going after. It makes sense.
Yeah. The player that won you a natty and all that. I get it.
Yeah.
And won another natty.
Yeah.
At UCF. Mike, I'm assuming that you're going to ask. Well, I guess it's still pretty early in his tenure.
Yeah.
For Matt Rhule.
Well, I guess I did miss one. There's a guy that he did get to experience the whole tenure of former head coach Scott. Was there any memorable press conferences from that era?
Oh, there were many.
Yeah, I know. Is there any that could just sit at the top?
All right, top 10, go. Top 10.
Oh my gosh.
No, it'll be top
Well,
10.
I mean, you talk about if you're in the mood to answer questions. I mean, there was the one before, was it the 21 season? I think it was the 21 season where like he's just like, yeah, we're looking forward to Saturday or Sunday or whatever the game was, and like he was just really short about it with every question. I think it was Sam who was like, "Are you upset about something?" Like it was very passive aggressive.
Now that is a good question.
Press conference. And he had his moments. He had his moments of insight. But yeah, you could tell when he was in a mood. The one where Trev was with him.
Oh yeah,
he was disciplined. For the analyst situation
that's
going on special teams.
Bad Scott.
Yeah, I mean, it was just tense. It was different. It was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But
have you ever seen anything like that before or after, where it's like the AD has to come out and you've got like this upset head coach and he has to be there, and obviously Trev was not pleased.
He looked like the kid that just got in trouble and his mom had to come.
He started the food fight at lunch. Nah. God dang it.
I've seen it with parenting. But no, not at major college athletics.
Wow. Oh, that's
so funny.
awesome.
Well, there's a lot of things that happened in that regime where it's like, shit, well,
red flags that we just kind of just kept breezing by.
They're red flags that we had, we saw them in real time. And you always just kind of had that hope that like, just the fact when he came in, I know we're relitigating all this and nobody wants to, but it's like when he came in, this dude's going to have all the answers, man. Like it's written in the stars that he's here.
He knows the formula.
He even when things weren't working at first, it's like, okay, well, that's fine.
It takes time.
It's fine. He's got to get his players and all that stuff. He's got to get his players and blah, blah. It's written in the stars that he's here, right? It's like biblical. But it just never, Jesus.
Yeah. It just never.
It just kept going and going.
Yeah.
For an extra,
well, not even a full.
No,
like, just an extra couple games.
Trev, looking back in hindsight, Trev had to do that. Because now we ended up with this guy that we like a lot.
And now we can turn the page to that.
And, I have stated some of my kind of misgivings with him, even though I 85% love the guy. Evan, under Matt Rhule, if you could give us one encouraging thing that you really like, and maybe one thing that kind of has you like, you could do a little better at this portion of the game or coaching.
Well, we talk about Nebraska at football being a fishbowl, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like the analogy I use is like Matt Rhule has gills to live in the fishbowl. Like he's comfortable with it. He's comfortable going out and high-fiving the basketball players. He's comfortable milling around at Haymarket with the crowd. He's comfortable going out to local events at PBA or going to a restaurant with his family and taking selfies with fans. And that stands in such stark contrast to however many coaches before that. I mean, Scott Frost did not want to go out a lot. Mike Riley, I don't think went out a lot.
Yeah, where did he go?
Bo Pelini,
he had his
people
wife's
would see
potato
him
soup.
jogging, but you want to stay away. You don't want to bother Bo when he's doing that. Bill Callahan, kind of the same way, very isolated, kind of, not a public figure.
And in his office constantly, probably. Thinking of O-line concepts or something.
Hey, great O-line coach,
Right.
but just didn't really embrace sort of the strongest asset of Nebraska football, which is the passion and the fan base. And Matt Rhule does. Like it's not an act. Like he's comfortable with it. You can't fake going out all the time with your family and being gracious with your time and loving that. Like and who knows how that will translate into success, but it gives you an edge that a lot of his predecessors didn't have. So I think I start with that relational aspect clearly translates to recruits and recruiting. Just his ability to be well-spoken and to think globally has always been important in a head coach, but I think it's even more important today when you're talking about re-recruiting your roster every year, when you're talking about the transfer portal. Like, you need to be able to articulate to your players your message, what you're all about, why should they stay. And we've seen that, I think, with what they've done in terms of keeping their players, guys like Ty Robinson turning down the NFL to come back for another year. So like clearly there's something about the culture under Matt Rhule that players like, or they wouldn't be there. You know, on the other end, I would say just some of the in-game decisions that we saw in year one. You know, I don't know if it all is related to talent, right? Like some of the clock management stuff late in games.
Yeah.
Some of the play calls down the stretch in tight situations, you're kind of like, hey, is that maybe the right call?
Is that what the blackjack book would tell you to do?
Yeah,
right.
Like, is that exactly?
Yeah.
Is this the highest probability play? And maybe that stuff gets smoothed out. And Matt Rhule has essentially said this, that maybe that stuff can get smoothed out as the talent level rises, as the culture sets in, as guys kind of know what they're all about. And maybe it will. But I think that's the thing in year one. We're like, man, that's something you could control in the moment. And maybe looking back when you talk about, you know, saving a few seconds, or should you pass or run in a certain situation, I think there were some times where it didn't feel like second guessing. It felt like first guessing, to just be like, you know, maybe this is the course of action, and then they go the other way.
Yeah.
We talked about it before we went live. Is there a possibility, if, you know, it's not a secret that Dana Holgorsen was, you know, around the program, went to a wrestling match, all that stuff. Is there a possibility that he could be in a role on this staff next year? Or do you think that he has bigger jobs and opportunities?
I mean, my sense is if it was going to happen, it would have happened already.
Yeah.
Same.
You know, typically that happens in January, maybe early February, and here we are in early to mid-March. So I don't know that that's in the cards. But like, to me, I never thought that he was in the running to be offensive coordinator or out on the staff. I know that was sort of a talking point for a while, but it's like, to me, what it says is like, this is Matt Rhule and Nebraska turning over every leaf to try to find a way to make the offense better. Like, it's like they've made clear what they want their offense to be, right? Ground and pound, win the fourth quarter,
49ers
offense, 49ers, all that. What they haven't talked about it being was what Dana Holgorsen came from, the Mike Leach tree of the air raid and what that looks like. And so, I mean, again, to me, that's what that is. It's like, hey, let's bring in a guy who has knowledge separate from what we have. His expertise is in a different area. Let's learn from that. You know, maybe it works out for him to be an analyst. Maybe it doesn't. But I just saw that as Nebraska doing its due diligence and trying to mold this offense into something different than what we saw last year.
And Dana, while you're at it, go to a wrestling match.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, it was
Sure,
interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah, why not?
Do it.
To your point about
Get these people talking. Come on. Yeah. Put us on Twitter. Come on. Have this creepy guy behind you take a picture of you and post it on Twitter.
To your point, Evan, about Matt Rhule being comfortable in the fishbowl. It certainly seems, and I don't know if this is in regards to the NIL and kind of putting the face to the program, but it certainly seems like some of that he's trying to rub off on Dylan Rhule. He's taking, you know, he's got Dylan's at the basketball games. He's going to different events. He's kind of a face that's in the public pretty regularly. And the cameras are always on him, and he's always on the PA board, hyping the crowd up and things like that. So I think you've got a good point where it's like Matt Rhule feels like he knows this is a fishbowl. He feels comfortable in the fishbowl, and he's probably telling his future starting quarterback, you better get comfortable, pal, because they will eat you alive and they will praise you all in the same time.
Well, he has a lot of good perspective. I mean, you think about when Heinrich Harburg was early on in his time last year. He won a couple games, and everyone wanted to talk about how great Heinrich Harburg was. And in that moment, when Nebraska was doing well, Matt Rhule said, you know, my message to Heinrich was, don't lean too hard one way or the other, because one moment they'll love you and the next moment they won't when the losses start to come. And he was right. They lost some games down the stretch and a lot of the luster went off. So I think he just has a good perspective about those things. He's been reflective in his own career about when he was at Carolina, people were chanting for him to be fired. And then the next moment he's out and people are praising him as a free agent coach in Nebraska. And he's talked about telling his daughters, this isn't real. Like, family is real, but like your interaction with fans, whatever it is, good or bad, you can't put too much stock into that. I think with Rhule, I think what he has is who he is. Like, I think he likes that attention in a way that he's comfortable with it. Like, you think about the fact that his dad's was a former longtime NFL player, and Dylan grew up kind of working with and meeting NFL quarterbacks. So like, he's comfortable in that kind of setting. And then you look at, even just since Rhule has been on campus, I mean, he was a direct, representative for what Nebraska did in the transfer portal. Guys like Dante Dowdell and Isaiah Nayor and others. I mean, he was the second guy to shake hands with him after Matt Rhule. And like, I don't think that's something you push on a guy to say, like, get better as a leader. Like, I think you either have it or you don't have it. And I think Rhule has it. So again, how that translates into touchdown passes and completion percentage and how quickly you can process the defense remains to be seen. But like, that other stuff also matters. And I think in that way, Matt Rhule and Dylan Rhule kind of are kindred spirits a little bit.
Yeah. With no ill intent or ill will towards some of our last quarterbacks. Like, we do talk about Adrian quite a bit and how he was kind of dealt a not great hand, and the dude played through injuries and didn't have the most talented players surrounding him. But like, especially with Dylan coming in, it really just kind of reiterates my kind of stance that when you have a quarterback here at a place that cares so damn much, too much, you got to have a guy who's just an alpha and is just like, bout it. You know what I mean? Just bout his business. A guy that can step into the locker room, or, he's in the huddle and guys look at him and they know. Like, no offense to Zach Lee or some of these other guys that we've had. And it's just, we need a guy in there that's just, I'm the dude, follow me. I'm Tom Brady. Let's go win this shit. Let's go. Like, quit with the excuses. I'm the guy, follow me. And I just feel like the quarterback position has been lacking in that aspect. And I think, he's the ride or die guy. Matt Rhule's got to ride him. If it doesn't work, shit. Yeah. but if it works, then damn. Yeah.
Well,
let's go.
I mean, doesn't it resonate that that's a guy who could have gone anywhere? He was committed to Georgia, obviously. He was committed to Ohio State before that. And so, like, his path and the path of least resistance would be go to Georgia, start, I don't know, as a sophomore, junior, maybe, contend for a national championship, and then after 3 or 4 years, go to the NFL. Like, that's the easiest path that he could have taken.
Yeah.
And instead, albeit at the 11th hour in somewhat dramatic fashion, says, I'm going to go to Nebraska because that's where my heart is, and because I can create something there instead of sort of being a cog in an already existing powerhouse. I mean, that's what he said. And he didn't just say it. He backed it up by putting his future, his development into the hands of Nebraska coaches, putting the spotlight on him. There would have been a spotlight at Georgia for sure, but in a different way than what Nebraska has, because it's so starved for success and because that's what the fans have. And they just, they haven't had it. So I think just because of his journey alone and like the decision that he made when he had other options, like, I think that already ingratiates him to the team. Like, it kind of proves him a little bit to the team. And obviously he needs to go through it with mat drills and in the spring and all that. But like, he comes in with a different vibe than what a lot of really any Nebraska quarterback in this century has done.
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
it's different.
Like you said, he could have picked any place, right? He could have picked Ohio State, who has a long, storied history, quarterback pipeline to the NFL. Vince Ferragamo,
Right.
1970.
How does he
something.
know this stuff?
No,
How does he remember
listen,
this stuff?
I mean, that's the only quarterback.
My point being,
That's right.
It's lit.
just who have they put?
Hey,
Tommy,
Tanner Lee.
Tommy Frazier didn't even play. Oh, Jesus. But not like Nebraska doesn't have history putting dudes in the league. Like, leave me alone. Leave me alone, Nebraska.
Quarterback.
You redheaded stepchild. You.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna play for a natty, or I'll win a natty without playing, and then I'll win one the next year. And it's just like, yeah, it's the road less traveled, but hopefully it pays off.
Yeah,
and hopefully he can be, like you said, start the freaking quarterback pipeline to the NFL. He can be the first one. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah, and what better place to start than the number one quarterback in the country?
Yeah, or with going to the school where your dad, his name's on the wall.
Yeah,
in the stadium, that kind of helps.
That helps.
And oh, by the way, it just happens to be at the position that just killed Nebraska last year with turnovers.
Yes.
Hey,
which leads me to my question.
Let's go get it.
Who is the starting quarterback week 1?
No, that's not even it. That's not even it.
Well, okay.
We all know that.
No, I want to make sure Evan's on the same page. Do you think Hunter Carberg is going to start next year? Or do you think it's going to be Dylan Rhule first snap of the first game?
I think it'll be Dylan Rhule.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now get into it, dude.
Now the real question. Go on. Well,
I was just going to say, how many games does Danny Kaelin get in
Are we doing
next
that?
year?
Does he get in?
Just to keep his red shirt. How many games do you think he actually gets in and plays, if he gets in at all?
Well, you would think he would redshirt, right? You would think.
Yeah.
And so up to 4. I don't know. I mean, injuries maybe would factor into that. 3 would be my guess. 3.
Okay.
I'll say 3.
So if the guess, I guess the debate that we've had on the podcast so far is like, if, as we've seen in the past, QB1 goes down.
Yeah.
Do you go with Heinrich Harburg and fill that, or do you give Danny the snaps?
I mean,
I guess it's all situation depending, but it's still like Connor on the podcast. He has argued up and down. It kind of changes. He's going to get into 2. He's going to get into 4. He's going to get into 3 games. And we
5.
say if anybody's getting into the game, it's going to be Heinrich Harburg to prepare him for valuable snaps that might come if Dylan Rhule goes down.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, before spring ball, I would agree with that. I think that's going to be probably the narrative in the spring and the fall is like, who's number 2?
Yeah.
Is it Heinrich Harburg? I mean, maybe it is. He started 8 games last year, and they had their moments, but his skill set is a lot different from Daniel Kaelin's.
Yes,
and
true.
A lot different from Dylan Rhule's. And I mean, it's telling that Nebraska ran the option when they had Heinrich Harburg in there. Like, that's what he is he's tough and he's fast, and the passing game is a little bit different with him than it is with Kaelin or Rhule. So
yeah,
and we'll see like what Heinrich Harburg's situation is. Like, again, the opener against Minnesota last year, he caught a pass.
Yeah,
right. And there was talk about him being an H-back or something else,
Taysom Hill type guy.
Right.
Yeah.
So who knows kind of what that turns into, and you can't really have the discussion until you kind of see what Nebraska does in the transfer portal in late April.
True.
And what that looks like, I don't know, because typically guys are in the portal because they're looking for playing time elsewhere, and this doesn't seem to be a spot.
Yeah, the sell we talked about this with Jack Mitchell is like, what are you selling these people?
What is
like,
the pitch?
Yeah, like, hey, come in. We already got our QB1, but just in case he goes down, you come in.
I think you go down like the if like back in the day, if you guys remember the Madden curse, you go through all the Madden covers and all those guys got hurt, right? You could do like the Nebraska quarterback history and be like, Tommy Armstrong hurt. And then you can show his backup breaker.
Casey Thompson.
Casey Thompson.
Even Nebraska's best quarterback of all time got injured.
Yes, Tommy Frazier
So
hurt.
there's that.
And look, the reason that they got hurt, and not solely, but a big reason, is because they were running quarterbacks.
Yes.
And that's so how much they run Dylan Rhule, I think, is really going to be an interesting thing to follow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you want to run him more than a handful of times a game, 3, 4, 5. Like,
Agreed.
I don't think you need to rely on your running backs and go that route. But I don't know. I mean,
there's a reason why Minnesota has handed it to you in the last 10 years. There's a reason why Wisconsin has handed it to you. There's a reason Iowa has handed it to you. Those teams are not running the option. They're not. They're not. But look at our record.
And their quarterbacks stay healthy.
Yeah. Because they're generally not mobile. All those guys Like they're literally pocket passers, statues.
Yeah.
Wait, Deacon Hill's not?
Yeah.
Except Deacon, he's
That's a big boy.
big athlete.
That's a big boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we talked about this last week with Jack. If a transfer guy coming in is just so out of the question, and it's really funny because like we posted this on Facebook, the video with him, and just the whole gamut, every type of comment or response that you would think is what we got.
Mm-hmm.
On one hand, no, you cannot have Heinrich Haarberg be quarterback 2. You saw last year what his skill deficit was in being a Power 5 quarterback and asking him to make Power 5 throws. Painful. On the other hand, no, they can't get a transfer because
They can't
who
sell
the
it.
hell would come here? Hey, you're going to replace the savior who got hurt.
Yeah.
You're replacing the savior. Good luck. And so again, like you get these wide gamut of responses. I feel like they need to look in the transfer portal. I know you said you're okay with Heinrich.
Yeah.
I
I'm
loved
not.
Heinrich when he was winning. I'm fickle. What can I say? And I love pickle. But no, dude, just I cannot watch Heinrich Haarberg start a significant amount of games at quarterback again. And it's not going to be Kalen. Just got to find someone desperate. I know.
Well, we're going to find out, right?
Shoot.
Yeah. Like we can
know.
ask the coaches what they think about the quarterbacks in the spring, but what's going to tell the tale is what do they do after spring ball? Do they get somebody out of the portal? If they do, then that tells you, Haarberg and Kalen maybe aren't ready for what they want to be. If they don't, if they say, hey, these are our guys, then that sends you a pretty strong signal too of what it could be. And, I've talked to transfers who've come in or left Nebraska, and you're Power 5 for a reason. Like the facilities, from a health perspective to nutrition to all the bells and whistles that Nebraska has, it is different from most schools. So like I can see a situation where a guy was at a group of 5 team program or even a Big 12 or ACC backup, and he's like, I'm going to come to Nebraska and be treated like royalty.
Yeah. Live in luxury
For a year or two, know that the coaching staff has a history of backing its players and helping send them into coaching or whatever they want to get into. Like that's not outlandish to think of, but it's going to require a really specific situation. And if you look at what Nebraska's done in the portal, it typically starts with a pre-existing relationship. So do they know anybody who knows somebody who knows these guys? Or are they sort of approaching them out of the blue? So I think if it happens, you're going to see there'll be some sort of pre-existing relationship that they'll be able to leverage.
Yeah. And I think just real quick, and I know we're probably getting there.
Yep.
But another interesting aspect of this too is the NIL component. If you are a desperate JUCO guy, if you are at a program like Arizona and you're third string or something and you're walling away, you're being wasted away on the bench, is the Pede family and Matt Davison going to give you
some jerky?
Some jerky. Give me some of that jerky money. Hey, we'll give you 6 figures to be the backup to the savior. Like, I'm sure there's someone out there that would take that, right?
Yeah.
Would the Pede family be willing to give up that jerky money for him?
Especially somebody that is not expecting themselves to go to the NFL. Like, you're going to give me a little money to be backup quarterback.
Yeah,
sure.
And like you said, live up in luxury with all the amenities that Nebraska can offer.
Blue Mountain State.
Hey,
best position, backup quarterback.
Yep.
Just
exactly
saying.
right. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
That's
Okay, what was the big question? Sorry, we kind of got off on a...
that was it.
Okay, was it that? Okay.
Is a transfer portal quarterback out of the question? That was the big question.
Okay.
Yeah.
We did have a question in the chat from our friends with the Husker Army podcast. They said, one question. Once Rhule gets us back to where we belong, is this his permanent home till retirement?
I think there's a good chance of that. I mean, assuming Nebraska's rolling, because like he's been in the NFL.
Yeah. What about Penn State?
I mean, that's the one. That'd be the one that you'd have to worry about a little bit. James Franklin's still there.
Yeah, he's well seasoned there.
Yeah,
I think he's
wins.
doing a good job.
Yeah,
you look at what the Big Ten's going to be. Suddenly, he's out from under the thumb of Michigan and Ohio State in the East.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He doesn't have to play those schools every single year. Like now, instead of I'm not in the Big Ten championship game because I'm behind those schools. Hey, if he finishes third in the Big Ten, they're in the playoff.
Yep.
Playoff, right? So like I think Penn State, out of just about anybody, benefited the most from what the Big Ten's doing, restructuring moving forward. And so, Franklin's name's been connected over the years with a lot of different programs. He's still there. I think he settles in there personally because of what I just said. And Matt Rhule, you take him at his word with what he says. He's like, I'm kind of sick of moving my family around. They were at Temple, they were at Baylor, they were at Carolina, now they're in Nebraska. He still has 2 daughters who are in like middle school, elementary school. Some stability eventually settles in there. And you think about over the years, coaches that Nebraska was afraid to lose. Bo Pelini back in the day was kind of looking at Miami, and people were early on in his tenure, you're kind of afraid he was going to go somewhere else. Like, he hadn't been a head coach in the NFL. He hadn't been to some of these other places. Matt Rhule's kind of done that. He's been a head coach in the Big 12. He's been a head coach in the NFL. Like, he kind of knows who he is. I think he understands that Lincoln is a special place that you can win at. The Big Ten's one of the Power 2 right now. So other than Penn State, I don't know what you leave for that's better than the situation that you have.
And
I just don't see it.
Yeah. And you mentioning how he has gills, right, in this fishbowl. And you think about, I guess, all the connections he's made, and like, assuming he can get us to the 8-9 win thing regularly. It's like, dude, I mean, you can't leave now. Because we love you too much. Like, we've said many times on this freaking podcast that he's more Nebraskan than some of the past coaches that we've had. And you're thinking
from Nebraska.
And it's like, no, if you get us back to 8 or 9, you're ours now. We got our hooks in you, and you got your hooks in us.
And even with the possibility that like Trev Alberts obviously leaves in how many years, right? If he ever leaves,
you can't leave either.
You can't imagine that the person coming after Trev Alberts is looking at Matt Rhule going, nah, I don't think this is the guy. I don't think this is the guy. I need to put my mark on the program. I need to find my own person. Like, I don't know. I just think there's so much that the fans love. I think there's so much good that's happening inside the program. It's like, I don't see.
You got to start winning.
But you got to start winning. Right. So
8-9.
I'm assuming that you've got some sort of success, right? 8-9 wins, whatever. I just don't see like a outside factor being the reason that Matt Rhule leaves. I don't know.
So when we say 8-9, like, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm at, like, I guess the Iowa model. And look, if we're being honest, the Iowa model would have gotten them into an expanded playoff. Like 8 or 9. That's what I want. I'm not expecting 10. If we get 10, I'm jumping off a cliff and ending it, because that's the highest point I'm ever getting.
72nd and died.
77. I'm hanging off a light pole. I'm falling off and landing on my head and dying.
Yeah.
So 8 or 9, I'm good with that. Just get me there, Matt. Just get me to 8.
I mean, 8 is the new 10.
Yeah,
honestly,
expanded.
Because when you're talking about the new Big 10, I mean, you're essentially adding 2 more Power 5 teams, especially as the Big 10 goes to what is it, a 9-game schedule. It's a hard schedule.
It sucks.
Even next year, which is about as favorable as it gets in terms of starting at home and starting a little bit easier, and you can ramp up. It's still hard. Like, you don't have 4 games to sort of, fatten yourself up.
Unless
anymore.
you're Michigan.
Well, they have done that. That's true.
And but you can win a natty doing that.
And you win 8 or 9, you're in the playoff conversation. You're not going to get in at 8 or 9 every year, but you're going to be in that conversation.
Yep.
And how long has it been since Nebraska fans have been in a relevant CFP conversation? Briefly in 2016. I mean, that's the last time.
Yeah.
See, and here's the thing too.
And that came crashing down.
Oh God.
62-3.
Yeah.
Sucked. And it's funny, right? Because if they enter that conversation, it's going to be, well, it's all because they expanded the playoff. I'm going to go, I don't care.
I don't care.
I don't give a
Like,
shit.
if I'm a Husker fan, I'm not greedy anymore. If we're at least in the conversation, I don't care if it's because they expanded the playoff to 68 teams.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a little far. But like, hey, you guys played in the Pinstripe Bowl. You're in the conversation. Okay, fine, whatever.
Great.
Dude, we want to make a bowl game.
I want to be in a conversation for a Pinstripe Bowl.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to New York. We're freezing our asses off, Evan. I don't need an Orange Bowl right now.
No, the standard for next year is still make a bowl game.
6.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have to ask you.
Yep.
The line was set 7.5.
Mm-hmm.
You take me over the under.
It's a good line.
It is a good line.
It's a really good line.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing over there, don't they?
They do. I think they win. I think 7 is the number. for
Okay.
me.
Okay, taking the under.
I mean, it's the under, but like people would be thrilled with that.
I would be thrilled.
Absolutely.
I'm
If
a
you win
dodge.
7,
Hanging off the light pole, shirt off. Pinstripe bowl.
if you're starting a true freshman,
Yeah.
if you're starting strong in this new expanded Big Ten, if you win 7 games, that's a heck of a place to start.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right? You can build
Frickin'
with that. You can build with that.
That would be progress that we begged for year after year with former head coach Scott.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Just get to a bowl game. And it was
Build.
3, 4, 3, 4.
Remember
Like,
when they turned down the opportunity to go to a bowl game?
yeah,
They're like, our players are tired.
they're tired.
Imagine what that could have done for the program. He might still be here. I doubt it. But
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Just of all teams, like you were the coach and the team fighting the whole way. You were lawsuits.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
didn't
Anyway.
want to play. Okay.
No. Yeah, Mike's like, nah.
Wrap. Yeah, let's
All
wrap
right,
it up.
fine.
Yeah.
I'm just sorry. We have Evan Bland with us, guys.
Real quick, Evan, are you going to Indy for the
media days?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah, going. Okay, so are you going to the Big Ten tournament?
For basketball?
Yeah.
No.
No.
I'll be there for basketball.
Gotcha.
Big
he's
baseball.
baseball, football,
Big baseball guy.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'll be watching.
Along with us.
It'll be more interesting than it's been in a while. I think.
Yeah.
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 Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, I guess this is where we ask Evan, like, plug yourself. Where can people find you if you want people to find you? Your tweets, your videos, your podcast. Where can they find Evan Bland?
Yeah. Omaha World Herald. Omaha.com at Evan Bland OWH. It's baseball season. Got the home openers this weekend. Spring ball's just a couple weeks away.
Can't wait.
Pro days, March 20th. So be out there seeing what the guys are doing. Omar Brown and Luke Reimer and the gang, seeing if they can maybe earn their way onto an NFL scouts radar. See how that goes. So yeah, those places.
The spring
Cool.
game is next month.
Crazy.
That is crazy.
Jesus.
Can't wait.
Do you remember going there last year and it was freaking cold as shit?
I
Oh
hope it's
yeah,
better.
we were in the
And now
parking
it's
lot.
earlier. It's 11 a.m. What are we doing?
Hey.
Give the fans time to enjoy themselves.
Hey, I'll tell you this though.
Enjoy themselves.
I'll tell you this, Evan. Working the games,
Yeah.
give me 11 a.m. because then it gives me the rest of my day back. I'm not spending all freaking day
I ain't working
filming
the game.
stuff and then going to the game, filming that, and then afterwards editing and traveling home. I'm just saying,
Right.
11 a.m. games are not so bad when you work them. So
I don't disagree.
yeah, yeah. 7 p.m. games kill me.
Yeah.
Like it's a long day.
Get home at freaking
Hey.
well past 2.
I start tailgating at 9 a.m. for a 7 p.m. games. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
2:30 is the sweet spot, but
Yeah.
it does take up your whole day as well.
Oh yeah, it does. Absolutely.
I know the fans don't care for 11 a.m.s on Saturday, but I can be home for the 7 o'clock games if that's the case.
Hey,
And,
I'm
like,
good- I'm
I
good
don't
with
hate, I don't
11.
hate that.
I'm
Bingo.
good with 11.
Yeah.
Shoot. All right, guys. NBNRpodcast.com. We are on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok,
YouTube. Subscribe.
Yeah, we're at 400 subscribers. Please, just get us to 500.
We deserve more.
Please.
Hey, Kyle.
It's free.
Kyle, we deserve more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're
And you
getting
guys do a great job.
Thank
I
you.
love, I love this.
Thank you.
It's unfiltered. I love it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
We appreciate
What's the
you
good work?
spending
Yeah.
your time with us this
Seriously.
evening.
Yeah,
Thanks for
man.
having me. No, I really appreciate it.
He does respond to his emails, guys. So if you go to omahaworldhill.com
Yeah.
and you send him an email, he actually responds.
Whatever your comments are, every time
Yes.
you read his article,
Yeah,
send him
you
an
just
email.
Send him an email.
Send him DM him. Just send him all the DMs.
I mean, maybe I shouldn't say it, but I try to respond to any emails that people send. Like,
Nice.
if they're reading my stuff, like that's I appreciate that. That's not something I take for granted. for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
Absolutely. Okay, guys. What do you say we sign off?
Yep.
Do it.
Well, first of all, Benson Honey Farms.
Yes.
Go freaking buy their stuff, please. They're amazing. I got to buy some more stuff from them.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna get in on that. And then also the Guitars for Vets, the concert that's going on here.
Yep.
at
Right here at
Nebraska
the
Brewing
brewery.
Company.
Yep. Friday night. It's free. Come listen to some country music and drink some ice cold beer.
All right, guys. I'm one of your hosts, Jared Hall.
Mike Delaware.
Kyle Byers.
Evan Bland.
As always, beat Michigan, beat South Alabama, and GBR.